Hello, hello, FedPhoenix fam. So, first, to clarify, I do have on a shirt. I have on a little cardigan over my shirt because it's a little nippy. But I'm clothed. I know if it's just like this, it's kind of, you might think this is a more of an OnlyFans than a YouTube venture, and I assure you, as a soon-to-be grandmother, OnlyFans type thing is not my thing. And even if the grandma thing was not a factor, I just really am not into all that, you know. But anyway, and oh yeah, fun fact, I'm going to be a first-time grandma next May. So, today I wanted to do a video on something that if you've been to federal prison, you have been just beaten the head over and over and over again about. If you have yet to go, this is a term, a thing that you will become incredibly familiar with, whether you want to or not, because there will be town halls about it, announcements about it, memos sent out prison-wide about it on a regular basis. It will become a very popular topic. And especially, I think, especially in women's prisons. And I'm going to share my opinions about this particular topic, some of which are not so popular. So let's dive right into it. So today we're going to talk about PREA. PREA is an acronym, P.R.E.A, and it stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act. Apparently, I think this is some type of law that was passed to protect inmates from becoming victims of assaults, right? So there are two types of PREA situations, right? You got guard plus inmate PREA situations, and you got inmate and inmate situations, which I find rather interesting for a lot of reasons. First off, the most common PREA situation that you will happen to observe, overhear, notice, or suspect will be inmate, plus inmate type PREAs. In women's prisons, these almost nearly never are forceful situations. However, I have heard of situations outside of federal prison, matter of fact, in a particular women's state prison, where women were being assaulted in a very literal sense, in a violent, I want to hurt you kind of way, with objects in an intimate manner. And that, of course, would qualify as a PREA, amongst other things as well. But typically, the kind of PREA activity you will see is my personal and only, kind of favorite aspect of all that is when they do shakedowns. And, you're kind of privy to what's being found. And a lot of times, sometimes what's being found is various paraphernalia that people use, toys, for lack of a better term, that are very much homemade and, prison rigged, with their partners in prison, both consenting adult parties. And usually this consists of like a bra as a harness and, or some kind of, I've seen crocheted ones, which is hats off for the ingenuity. However, I would imagine that moisture is an issue and mold and, well, let's not, yeah, you know what I'm thinking. But often the actual implement, for lack of a better term, is a pencil or toothbrush holder wrapped with pads or panty liners or something to that extent, kind of bound with like rubber bands or tied together with string, and then placed inside some type of plastic barrier, whether it be a trash bag, a rubber glove, whatever. So now, then the other kind of PREAs, and this of course is women's prison, information, because, I've never been an inmate in a men's prison. However, I do know secondhand that that the majority of PREA type activity in men's prisons is also consensual inmate on inmate relationships between consenting adults. Of course, the other type of PREA is staff and inmate. And it's funny because before I went to Alderson, I did some research, right? Because y'all know me, I like to be as informed or even overly informed as possible. And there was this guy who was a CO there, Grimes, that was his last name. Gotta Google it. I want you to Google it and get a visual. Alderson Women's Federal Prison, Officer Grimes. I don't know what terms I can and cannot use on YouTube, but I'm assuming this because it's not, whatever is relevant. But anyway, sexual assault. And it's really, I think they said like hundreds of women over the course of years. And Now, based upon the hearsay from inmates who were inmates there during Grimes's time, and based upon my own general observations and a little bit of common sense, I would say the majority of the women that he had P.R.E.As with were in fact not, they were people who were very much influenced or intimidated by his position of power and, felt that they had no option, which is tragic. I don't think anyone being assaulted in such an intimate manner is ever okay. Now, most recently, you can Google, and this is, of course, all allegedly, as far as I know, there hasn't been a conviction yet. But an Officer Bennett, who I refer to in several of my videos as Officer Haughty, who I also mentioned was a sadistic psychopath that was very charismatic, and I think most people didn't really see him for what he was. But who was, he was flirty with some people, but definitely not in front of other guards or any staff. And I remember one time an elderly lady kind of like touched his arm, and I mentioned this in another video too, just casually, in the way that older people will talk to you, and he like snapped on her in front of the whole unit. Don't ever effing touch me. I will spray you. You will get wrote up. You will get charges. And I remember thinking, first off, you cannot see people as human beings and treat them that way, particularly the elderly, when they're not, consciously doing anything wrong. But additionally, I remember thinking, a hit dog is gonna holler, right? I remember thinking that the overreaction, like how they say about, people that are like just extremely homophobic, usually have some issues with having, those types of preferences or interests themselves, but there's some type of guilt or shame or anger or something tied to that makes them keep it very secret, and that repressed crap gets spewed in the form of anti whatever they in fact are. So the fact that he was so animately, just really wanted to make an example in a scene and just so over the top, made me wonder. And I don't think he was having any involvement with inmates when I was there, to be perfectly honest. But it made me wonder, is this something that he does, or is this something that he's considering doing? Because why is this such an extreme reaction? It wasn't natural, wasn't, typical. And I do know he's a person who did not see inmates as people, but rather as basically objects for his own entertainment. Quite often, if you would get a disciplinary write-up, a shot, as they call it, he would offer, if he was in a position or it was his shift, he would offer an alternative punishment, like catching air with trash bags for, until he stopped being amused with you doing it, mopping the grass, sweeping the gravel, just idiotic things that were very demeaning and dehumanizing, and were designed solely for his entertainment on the fact that you are less than human. And he was very open about this practice, and often other staff, guards, higher up guards and such, would be privy to this, would witness this, or he would even brag about it to them. And most would kind of, they would either A, find it entertaining as well, or B, just not really find it entertaining, maybe even find it a little gross or weird, but just kind of laugh it off, But since I've been home, I bring this all up to say, Google Officer Bennett, Alderson Federal Prison Camp, women's prison, and may be indicted because he has since been charged with multiple counts of having P.R.E.As with inmates. Now, from my observations at the time, do I think that he fell in love with some folks or had any emotional connection? Absolutely not. Do I think on a very pure physical level, was he like, a lot of the women found him very attractive. And many were very upfront with that in their mannerisms towards him, very direct about it. And people are people. And when you put people in desperate situations, they do desperate things. And I think that these women found him attractive. I think that this was a willing mutual adult situation. And I think it was probably more of a business deal than anything, because there's also a lot of mention from the murmuring throughout the prison system, inmate.com, if you will, and the actual documentation, that these women that he was involved with, he was also bringing them in contraband. So I think for some that maybe didn't even really find him attractive, just knew that they were kind of his type. It was kind of like an exchange, much like prostitution, you know. I give you a little top, bottom, whatever. You bring me what I want, what I need, what I can financially gain from, whatever. But again, that situation. There has not been a conviction yet. It is alleged, and as I said, I did not personally witness him being inappropriate with any inmates. But, you know, I'm speaking on hearsay and in the actual charging documents. So a lot of people say, well, anytime there's a PREA situation, right, which this could be something, sometimes it can be harassment, you know, verbal. It would have to be pretty excessive, pretty aggressive. Usually it means some type of intimate contact, whether it's of an oral, hoo-ha, backdoor, any nature you can imagine. Even though I make my videos not for children, I don't want to say anything that's too, you know, left field. But no. So a lot of times whenever there's a PREA situation, right, between a prison staff or a guard and an inmate, first off, legally, it is the big R. You know, it is legally considered a forcible situation, regardless of the circumstances, because there is a power dynamic in play. And the inmate party is, in fact, a inmate, a prisoner, a hostage, for lack of a better term. You know, this is not someone that can just get up and walk away or has, you know, other options or, you know, is likely even comfortable speaking out against what you're doing because they don't want to be retaliated against. And what is on the line is getting home to their families, or getting home alive or safely, or getting more time, or getting shipped out to somewhere further from their families, or a more dangerous facility or whatever. So there's definitely some motivation. I think that was obviously the driving factor with the Grimes situation, to keep these people quiet and compliant. But I don't agree that it is in fact always the big R. I don't. I know when I was there, it definitely appeared that one particular kitchen staff member had a intimate involvement situation, a PREA situation, with an inmate. And this inmate was, you know, she was slender. She was about his age, and he was not a young person by any means. And I remember seeing him slip her a mayo packet one day in the CDR down in Chow Hall, which was really weird the way that it was done. It was almost like he felt like he was being sneaky, and, you know, but it was incredibly obvious if you were paying attention. And when I had casually kind of just, you know, kikied about this with a couple other people, they were like, yeah, pretty sure he's banging her. And I'm like, what? Really? Excuse me, it's that time of year. I was like, really? And they were like, yeah. When she works in the kitchen, because she also works in the kitchen, she tends to come before everybody else, or she tends to stay after everyone else leaves when it's just him and her here. Like, you know, there were a lot of circumstantial things that people were like, yeah, it's pretty apparent. I don't think their situation constituted a crime. I don't. I think they were both willing parties. And I think that, much like the alleged Bennett girls, I think that they found a mutual benefit. I think he found a physical and emotional void being filled. And I think she found a practical and physical and perhaps emotional void being filled. And I'm kind of a believer in no swindle and a swap, no robbery and fair exchange. And the majority of inmate on inmate PREA situations, intimate situations you will witness or observe or suspect, are almost always 100% consensual. And a lot of people say, well, you know, the inmate can't give consent. They're an inmate. Well, if the other party is another inmate, so there is no power dynamic, you guys are on an even playing field, to imply or insinuate that somebody is a victim necessarily is really a gross, out of context thing, in my opinion. And by the way, PREA, right, this particular thing, is a 100 series shot. A shot is the term used in the federal system for a disciplinary write-up. And you have 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 series. 100 series being the most severe. Amongst 100 series are PREAs, escapes, murders, that kind of thing. 500 series is stuff like, you know, maybe you stole somebody's knitting needle, you know, I think fights are usually like 200 or 300 series. I think depending on the amount of harm done or damage created to a person or property, I think determines the level of an actual assault as far as the shot series on it. And then anytime you get a 100 series shot, you're looking at potential outside charges or additional charges. You're definitely looking at losing good time. If you're earning and applying FSA credit, you're looking at losing that. If you've earned time off through RDAP and you're still in prison, you may lose that. You may lose anything from visitation, phone, email, commissary. You may get shipped out. Your housing level will likely go up. Your security level, you'll probably go to a higher security facility. 100 series shots are really the serious things, or at least what is viewed as serious by the Bureau of Prisons. But I do believe that some, staff and inmate PREAs, romantic situations, intimate situations, are adults who are mutually consenting to a mutually beneficial or fulfilling situation. And even though I understand why that is not allowed, I don't believe that individuals in those situations should be, if you want to ship out an inmate because, you want it to prevent and control the PREA amount on your camp, because that can lead to a lot of other more complex issues, sure. But to actually discipline people, adults, for consenting relationships, you got to think the inmates are together for months, years, and you get to know each other fairly well, sometimes much better than you'd want to. To think that as human beings, there's not going to be physical needs and emotional needs that people will seek fulfillment for is absolutely insane and ludicrous. To think that the guards or the staff who often work very long hours due to staffing issues nationwide and get to know these people, these inmates, over a period of years or whatever, and possibly quite well, to think that there's not potential, realistically, for there to become some type of physical contact on the basis of no robbery and fair exchange, mutually beneficial, on the basis of physical needs, emotional needs, whatever, is completely insane. I think the only time there should be any prosecution or disciplinary action in a PREA situation would be when it is absolutely like the Grimes situation, where it is 100% undoubtedly somebody was a victim. Whether that was an intimidation thing, whether it was just a actual violent type of thing, whatever coercion was clearly used, whatever. And that goes for inmate on inmate and inmate plus staff PREA situations. But when you go to prison, there will frequently be town halls, which are like unit meetings that staff will call. There will be memos. When you first get there, they'll read you a whole thing on PREA and have you sign a paper that you were informed about it. If you are the victim of a PREA, of a real PREA, of what I consider to be a truly applicable issue. If someone has intimidated or assaulted you in a violent manner that was not welcomed or appreciated or whatever, then I believe that your recourses at that point are to get a sensitive 10, in which case you do not have to tell your caseworker or case manager what you want it for. They are obligated to give it to you. And then put a thing straight into regional. I believe there's also an email that you can send, and then there's a phone number you can call directly. And then I think the ISS, I think it's what it's called. It's basically the guards who police the guards. It's almost like internal affairs for the police. For the COs, there's like a higher entity that pretty much polices them, even though in my opinion, they're all buddies and, whatever. But you can go to those people, I think they're called ISS, and say, listen, this is what's going on and I need help. And I do think if you're the victim of a truly inappropriate situation, you should certainly do what you can within reason to protect yourself. And that's a pretty broad statement. And I think I made it so broad because it's not a one size fits all type of situation. You know what I mean? But if you have a significant other in prison and you guys break up, and I've seen this happen, you don't go file an effing PREA against her or him because they made physical contact with you when 2 days or 2 weeks ago you were begging them with tears in your eyes to join you in the shower. I don't think if you had a mutually beneficial situation on whatever basis with a staff member at some point, and you just decide that they're not accommodating you enough, so you want to end it, that's not a point for you to go file a PREA or ring the alarm on that one. you be an adult and you handle things accordingly. You have to be accountable for yourself in life. And I think that's something that a lot of people lack, is personal accountability and introspect and self-awareness. And I feel like those things are absolutely necessary to see life for what it is and to be a decent human being. So, and they're not easy and they're not always pleasant, but it is what it is. No one enjoys going to chemo, but a lot of people who are cancer survivors that have done chemo will tell you it was one of the best decisions they ever made for their life, because if not, they wouldn't be alive. And I think breakups, for lack of a better term, are the same, including in inmate, staff, inmate, whatever situations. You try to be the adult. You try to do what is right. You try to take the high road. You try to do what is morally sound. Now, if a person is insistent, and again, if you become a victim at some point, that's when I think you're entitled to handle things within reason, to the best of your ability, according to your own personal circumstances. So, with that, I wanted to make a video, like I said, on P.R.E.As, because, this is something that your loved one, if your loved one is incarcerated or soon to be going to prison, will probably talk to you about or mention to you, because it is such a constant topic. If you go to prison or you've been in prison, this will be a very frequent topic also, I assure you. At one point, they actually, at Alderson, they made like little calling cards with like the information and the protocol if you're a P.R.E.A victim of what to do, and put little punch holes in them, and had us wear them with our prison IDs on our lanyards. Like, so you're literally wearing this thing anytime you're not sleeping or showering, to make sure that no inmate or no inmate's family could say that their loved one was not aware of P.R.E.A and P.R.E.A related protocols. I don't think you can really be unaware of anything when the other inmates talk about what staff members they'd like to spend a little alone time with and what they'd like to be doing with them. Or the fact that when you get up to pee at night, sometimes it sounds like someone's stirring macaroni in a pot and the cube you're walking by, and you just know not to look. But if you happen to look, I assure you what you're going to see is far more graphic than a old school Cinemax after midnight type stuff, you know what I mean? So, how many of you are old enough to remember Cinemax and Cinemax After Dark? That was pretty edgy for its time, so gotta love the 90s. So anyway, I just want to make a video on that. My email will be in the description if you'd like to reach out for me for any reason, if I can be of any assistance to you or offer any insights. My merch line, there'll be a link for that in the description of the video as well if you'd like to order yourself some FedPhoenix gear. We are up to touch over 400 subscribers. We're like 40% of the way to getting this thing monetized, which would do me a world of favors. So I really appreciate, those who have subscribed. If you're considering it, it costs you absolutely nothing, and you're voluntarily becoming kind of a building brick in the brand that I'm trying to build to empower and educate the loved ones of inmates, soon to be inmates, former inmates, and society in general about the whole federal inmate and federal injustice system kind of experience and situation. And what else? Oh, my Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo will be in the description. If you'd like to donate to the channel at all, I would greatly appreciate it. Although, as always, even if you don't have the financial means to be of assistance to me, if I can be of assistance to you with my information, with my insights, whatever, do not hesitate to reach out. The majority of people that I offer advisement to never send me $1, and I don't really care at the end of the day, because I know that I'm giving them something that I wish someone would have gave me when I was in their situation. And the karma from that, if you believe in that kind of thing, for lack of a better term, is far more valuable than, $10, $20, $50, popping up in my Cash App. So, it is what it is. When you do the right thing in life, when you choose to be part of the good you want to see, good will come back to you. I firmly believe that. And so with that, whatever you're going through, it is a slice of your life. You will get through it because you have to. My first grandbaby's coming in May. I'm so excited. I'll tell you on my next video what my grandma name is going to be. I think you'll find it spicy. And yeah, whatever you're going through, it is a slice of your life. You will get through it because you have to. And as always, nothing but love for the FedPhoenix fam, and good day. God bless.